Hey everyone, it's Kenton Becker, American Pacific Mortgage. I am here continuing on the topic of credit. Last tip I gave on credit and how to improve your credit scores. I did talk about maybe I would make some comments on some big myths with credit. I want to do that because there are three main credit myths that just about every homebuyer education class, new client I talk to, they will always repeat these myths to me, and I have to kind of say, well, that's not really fully true. They're just like any myth, there's a grain of truth to it. There's a little sliver of truth to it. You have to kind of look at the whole picture to decide if that really makes sense or if it is really true. So the number one credit myth that I hear almost every time is, Kenton, I need to be careful of inquiries or getting my credit pulled because I don't want it to lower my credit score. So what is that? Well, the sliver of truth to that is, yes, you do want to avoid having your credit pulled many times. And generally the more times you have it pulled, the more that could damage the credit score. However, there's a lot of other things and considerations we have to talk about to see if it really could be damaging to your score. For example, you have about a 14-day window from the time of the initial credit pull that you can have your credit pulled as many times as you want, and it's not going to affect your credit score at all. The reason for this is because shopping around for financing like auto loans or even shopping with lenders for a mortgage, the credit bureaus did not want that to damage or hurt the client in any way just for doing their due diligence on shopping for financing. We really see this with auto loans. You go to the dealership, you want to buy a car, and the financing company says, we're going to shop for the best rate. Well, they go to 20 different banks to find you the lowest interest rate, and your credit ends up getting pulled like 20 different times. If that were to happen, and if every inquiry affected your score would tank instantly, and you might not even be financed for that car. Obviously, that doesn't happen. You would get an inquiry for the initial credit pull, but not all the ones after that for at least that 14-day window. So in a short period of time, you can definitely have your credit pulled multiple times without it damaging the score. But even in a longer term, if you were looking at getting your credit pulled and then maybe 3 months later you needed to get your credit pulled again, is that going to damage your score? Well, the answer is no. Having your credit pulled every 3 months, every 4 months, not going to be damaging to your credit score. What is damaging to your credit score though? Well, if you have your credit pulled many times over the course of a 3-month period. Let's say you have your credit pulled and then 3 weeks later you have it pulled again. And then 4 weeks after that you have it pulled again. Then you have it pulled 2 more times in the next month after that. Okay, that's going to start adding up to maybe more inquiries and possibly signaling to the credit bureaus that you might be in financial distress. And that's really what they're looking at. Are you searching for credit because you have a financial emergency? Are you getting denied for credit and so then you're going to another company to shop for financing and you're trying to find financing for whatever you're going through financially? That's going to signal maybe some damages to your credit score because of that. So individual credit pulls or even multiple credit pulls over a short period of time or even an extended period of time is not going to pull or not going to damage your score. So why does this myth actually even start? Well, here's the number one thing that I find. Anybody who is getting their credit monitored by any of the services out there, Credit Karma, FICO, even your bank or your credit card companies, they'll offer monitoring for your credit. Here's the problem with this. Consumer credit reports like Credit Karma are showing you a credit score based on the newest, latest consumer calculating software, credit calculating software. Credit scores are generated with software that takes all of your credit history, your payment history, your balances on your credit cards, all this information. And when you pull your credit, it takes all that information and the computer software calculates a credit score based on the information. That's how credit works. Well, here's the thing. Credit Karma and all of those services use all the newest, latest, greatest technology and latest versions of that software to calculate your score. What it does is it creates a very up-to-date, new, fresh credit score for you that has the latest information. However, the accuracy of that score is not as good as some of the older versions of the credit software. Well, guess what? Banks, financial institutions, even auto loan lenders, they will all use the older versions of that credit software, that credit calculating software. So what they produce when they pull a credit score is maybe not the most up-to-date credit information or credit history, but it's a more accurate credit score and a more accurate representation of your credit score. So this is where we see a problem. Clients will be looking at their Credit Karma score that shows they have a 740 credit score, and then the lender pulls their credit and it comes back at a 715. Well, to the client, they're thinking, oh no, my credit score just dropped 25 points or 30 points or whatever. They're looking at it saying, wow, Credit Karma said this and the lender said this, so that must mean that that credit pull lowered my score because of it. That's not true. Credit Karma had their own way of scoring your credit score, and the financial company had their own way of calculating your credit score. At the end of the day, the one that's more accurate is the financial company's credit score, like a mortgage lender, but that's kind of the perception of it, is my score dropped, when it's really not true. So that is where that myth kind of generates when you see that. But just know and just be assured that an inquiry or getting your credit pulled is not going to damage your credit score. The change that I've seen, and I've really tried to track this down for clients, I have heard some credit bureaus like Equifax, Experian have said at most you will see anywhere from a 3 to 5 point drop in your credit score from having multiple credit pulls. That's a very small change and really should not even be a consideration in deciding whether or not you want your credit to be pulled. Okay, so now the second myth. The second myth is all about kind of on the topic of improving your credit score, but what we see is that, hey, the myth is the best way to improve your credit score is just to not have any late payments and not do anything. In other words, just freeze your credit. Don't do anything and let it heal. Thinking like, oh, if I don't do anything on the credit, it will naturally get better. That's not how credit works. Credit works by taking in information, your credit history, and then it's going to calculate a credit score based on that. So if the information that it's taking in is that you're missing payments, you have higher balances, you have new collections, then the score it's going to provide you is going to be lower. But if the information it's taking in is on-time payments, low balances on credit cards, no missed payments on anything, then that information is good, and therefore the score that's calculated is also going to be good. It's very, very simple. What happens though is if you stop feeding it in any information, if you stop using your credit cards, if you stop using accounts, that's going to just lead to basically freezing your credit score right where it is. And if you go 1 year, 2 years, 3 years not using the credit and thinking, oh, okay, I allowed everything to recover, everything should be good. No, you're just going to pull the credit and it's going to look exactly like it did 3 years ago, like nothing changed. The only way that you can improve the credit scores is to feed it good information. I'm going to put a picture here of a balancing scales because this is something I talk about in the Homebuyer classes. I use this picture as an analogy. So on one side of those scales is good information, on the other side is bad information. If you have too much bad info on your credit, like late payments, collections, judgments, any of those items, that's going to be weighing down your credit score. How do you fix that? You need to feed it good information. The more you feed it good information, the less that bad information is going to be affecting you. So that is how you improve your score. All right, the third and final myth is that closing out credit cards is going to be good for your credit score. Or I'll even add to that and say paying off a collection is going to be good for your credit score. Not really. And actually, closing out credit cards is really damaging to your score. The reason for this is every credit card has history associated with it. On-time payments, maybe some missed payments, higher balances on credit cards, lower balances on credit cards. At the end of the day, your credit card has a bunch of information that is being reported to the credit bureaus that's impacting your credit score. Here's the problem. If you close out a credit card, all of that good on-time payments goes away. It's no longer there. It's not impacting your credit score. It's not even factored into your credit score. However, what does stay there is any negative items you had, like late payments, if it's a collection, those kind of things. Any of those things that are on there, like late payments are the big one. If you have a history of late payments on there, that's going to stay with you. But now you have those late payments on there. I hit my microphone. You have those late payments on there, but you don't have the good on-time payments anymore that's helping to balance that out. Remember, I talked about the balancing scales. Well, now if you don't have the good on-time payments balancing out those late payments, let me give you an example. Let's say you had a credit card for 10 years. You got it when you were 18 years old. It was for just a small credit card and it had a super high interest rate, but you've had it for 10 years. And in those 10 years, you've had 9.5 years of perfect payment history, but man, there was a few months there that you missed a couple payments. Well, what you have going for you is 9.5 years of on-time good payments and only a few payments that were missed or late. So at the end of the day, that's really not a damaging credit card to your credit score. It's probably, in fact, helping your credit score. Well, let's say because that's an old credit card and it had a high interest rate on it, you go, I don't really need that credit card anymore. I'm just going to get rid of it. So you cancel it. You close it out. Well, when you do that, you just lost 9.5 good years of perfect payments, on-time payments. And what stays with you is those 3 or 4 missed payments that you had over that 10-year period. On top of that, you also, because you lost 9.5 years of good payments, it's not helping anything else on your credit score or credit history. That's a lot of months of good on-time payments that was actually increasing your credit score. So as soon as you do that and you're thinking, okay, cool, I consolidated my credit cards, I got rid of one that I don't need anymore, and then you're shocked that your credit score just dropped 50 points. And it's because you just lost 9.5 years of good payments. Do not cancel or close out credit cards. So you might be saying, but yeah, Kenton, I've got 6 credit cards. I've got 8 credit cards. How do I consolidate those down? It's very simple. Pay off that credit card. Pay it down to 0. No more balance. Cut the credit card up. Don't even use it anymore. Just watch. Eventually, might take 6 months, might take 12 months, might take 18 months. But you're going to get a letter in the mail from that credit card company that says, due to inactivity, we are canceling your credit card. You might be thinking, doesn't that close out the account? Yeah, it does. But it did it naturally. You didn't go in there and say, boom, take an axe to it and cancel it out. Nope, it allowed it to happen naturally. That's the benefit. Credit reporting and the credit history is very smart. When it sees that you're no longer using a credit card, it shifts the weight from that credit card over to different accounts. So it says, oh wow, they're not using that credit card anymore. So now we're going to focus on these cards more. And that one doesn't really factor into the credit scoring anymore. So when you do that and then eventually that credit card company cancels it out, all right, that's fine. The credit bureaus weren't even factoring that into your score anymore. But it all happened naturally and not just you getting in there and canceling stuff out. Now, warning here, beware, some credit card companies will charge an annual fee. And if they do that, you need to monitor it. So don't just pay off a credit card, cut it up, and then, ooh, out of sight, out of mind, and it's all good. Well, if they charge you an annual fee, you need to pay that annual fee to make sure you don't have any late payments on it. So still need to monitor it until you get that letter or notice that says we're canceling your credit card. But that's just some information on how you can kind of consolidate credit cards, but do it naturally over time. Okay, so those are the 3 biggest myths that I've seen out there, with the number one being about inquiries. If you can think of any other myths, hey, bring them to my attention. Comment below. I love to answer credit questions. If there's any questions that you have, if your question is more sensitive to your information, shoot me a text, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to answer your question as well. Thank you so much for joining me on this week's tip. Have a great week.